Now we're going to take a minute and reset the field because that was our 2 recurve matches, and now we're going to be looking at our 2 compound matches. And compound actually shoots at 50 meters, where the recurve archers that we just watched are shooting at 70 meters. So they had to reset the targets. They're going to reset with a new target face, a much smaller size target face than what you saw the recurve archers shooting on, and then they will be ready to bring out our compound women.
Yeah. So for recurve, we were shooting a 122 centimeter face, and you guys are shooting an 80 centimeter target face. For people at home, for reference, the 10 ring at 70 meters is about the size of an apple, and like an average size apple, not like a huge Honey Crisp apple. What would you say the size of a
Okay, I was laughing as you said that because I would probably guess ours is the size of a normal apple. Well, here's one thing.
I'd say it's
target,
like a soup can, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably
like
good.
a small soup can.
Yeah, so the butt size did not change. So for those of you guys that were watching the recurve matches, you could see how much of that target butt the recurve target took up versus how much the compound target takes up. So as you can see, it is a drastic difference. Now, this was just one thing done basically to differentiate compound and recurve with the hopes of getting compound into the Olympics. So back in the day when I think we both first started, we all shot at 70 meters. We shot the same target at the same distance. And along the way, compounds tried a lot of different things, different targets, formats. We even tried set system for a few years, and now we're back to cumulative score. So this is where we've ended. We've been at 50 meters raw score on this target face now for quite a few years. So that is what we're looking at. So for those of you guys that are just tuning in, thanks for joining us on USA Archery. We're here at the 2020 Easton Foundations Gator Cup, and this is the last stop on this year's USAC Qualifier Series Tour. We're getting ready to bring in this year's compound women for the gold medal final. We, again, are here at Gator Cup. We've got a windy final here this morning. My name is Paige Pierce. I'm here with Mackenzie Brown, and we're going to be commentating these matches for you. So thank you for tuning in.
So yeah, for our gold medal match, we've got Tanja Jensen and Jensen Galantine now. Is she going to change her name?
So Tanja actually just got married to USA's I think he's still #1 ranked, right? Man, Braden Galantine.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think she's going to change her name.
Okay.
I know they were trying to get jerseys for this event with his last name on her shirt, so that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
And then Savannah Vanderwier is going to be challenging Tanja Jensen here in this final, or Galantine. We'll just go with Jensen for today, but yeah, it was pretty cool. They actually came and stayed at our house after SoCal. And basically, we headed down to another event. They got engaged while we were at that event and then got married shortly after. So it's been probably just a whirlwind few weeks for them. So it's pretty cool to see her come out here and shoot that strong after all the craziness that's been going on in their lives currently.
I couldn't imagine getting married in the middle of a competition season.
No, it's not easy. So they just brought out both girls. Now, Tanja is 25 years old, and for those of you guys that don't know, she's actually from Denmark. Currently still lives in Denmark, but now that her and Braden are married, will soon be living in the United States. And Savannah, so there's something really exciting about Savannah. She shot compound. I've always known her as a compound archer, but the recurves are trying to poach her from us and move her into the training center. So
no shame.
She did move in, correct? She's been there about a month now, right?
She's been out there trying to see how things feel, dipping her toe in the water. So still unsure about that just yet. I think that she gets to make that decision for sure, but
that's pretty awesome.
She's taken on to it pretty well, I'd say.
So Tanya's up first. You can see her bow moving a bit in the wind there. She opened with an 8. Now, one thing I do want to point out, compound is much more focused on like small aiming, I would say, than recurve. So for us A 9 from Savannah. That was a good start. For us shooting in the wind, it's very challenging when you expect a pretty steady sight picture and then you can't get that out there in a finals venue due to the wind.
Well, and the other thing, a difference between compound and recurve is you guys have a bubble or a level on your sight. So for recurve, we just have to aim off. And I know you guys aim off sometimes when it's really windy, but I would imagine most people bubble just a little bit to be able to aim off.
There's a good 10 from Tanja. I think every compound archer does it different. Some compounds really struggle not aiming in the center, and those archers would tend to bubble. I myself aim off over bubble, but Savannah and I were talking yesterday in the windy conditions, and she said that she does normally bubble with her compound. So, so 10-9-9, and Tanja had 10-9-8, correct? So it looks like that first end is going to give Savannah a 1-point lead.
Yep.
So compounds, again, for those of you guys that have been watching, we are not shooting set system anymore. Every arrow is going to count. Arrow per arrow, it's raw cumulative score. So at the end of these 5 ends, end of 15 arrows, whoever has the highest score will be our champion.
Yeah. So one of the other somewhat advantages to a compound would be 2 things. I would say the magnification and a peep sight.
Yeah, a peep sight is obviously going to give you another aiming reference, another anchor point reference, and it allows you to make sure that when you anchor in that you're lined up the same every single time. So that is definitely going to be a benefit over recurve. Now, the let-off on a compound bow can be a help and a hindrance. It obviously makes the bow easier to hold steady, but in these windy conditions, it also doesn't give you as much weight that you're pulling against, so your bow can move a little bit more in the wind if you have less holding weight. So
I've noticed that just because I have a compound bow. I'm actually going bow hunting shortly after this.
Awesome.
But I have practiced a little bit and just shooting outside with a little bit more weight close to the bow and stuff like that, and having that lighter hold on the back end is so much different than a recurve.
Well, watching these girls shoot throughout the match, you may see that their stabilizers or their bow will kind of whip back and forth in the really bad gusts, and that's just because they don't have as much resistance on the string that a recurve does.
There's a nice X.
Solid X from Tanja. She was looking for that. You could see she was a little frustrated after that first end. That was a good start. Good shot from Savannah.
Their arrows are almost identical. They're like within a 1/4 inch of
each
impact.
Oh, 8 from Tanja. The wind is picking up here.
Well, and I think what happened to Tanja is that gust came right as she released, and that's the most unfortunate time for that to pop up.
Yeah, so you can see Savannah's, oh my gosh. So you saw Savannah's bow moving there. So she just hung the 5 ring. Now, on compound, because we do have a target without the full rings, when something like that happens and you hang a 5, it sucks, but it's also a relief because had she been another 1/4 inch out, that would have been a miss. And that's a lot of points in one arrow to drop. Good comeback there. So, as crazy as that just looked when we just saw that, if you look, Tanja currently has a 54 and Savannah has a 52. As we've seen, that's 1 arrow right now. So, neither of these girls are
secured yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 points is still within the margin of error there to be able to come back for sure.
Yes. Now, I'm sure Savannah's incredibly frustrated, but as she shot that arrow, I was starting to say, you can see her bow moving in the wind, and as I started to say that, her bow broke. So I will say on compound, it is so much about when your shot breaks and shot timing. Now, both of these girls out here shoot a surprise shot or a back tension style shot. So they're not just floating by and deciding to shoot now when their pin is in the middle. They're aiming, they're fighting the wind, they're pulling through their shot, and they're hoping that their bow breaks at the right time. Sometimes it does, other times it doesn't. As you can see, honestly, I don't want to call it luck because obviously we train for this, but a lot of it is just luck of when your bow breaks in those moments.
So when you say bow break, you're talking about the shot itself breaking, like the
Yes.
release.
Yeah, the
going off.
release breaking.
Just for people at home, I know what you meant, but I didn't want people to think bows are breaking on the
Yes,
line.
no, good clarification. So yeah, if you notice, obviously recurves, you guys are shooting with your fingers and a finger tab. The compound archers out here both have releases. So,
Well, and I think what you said was correct, the surprise shot, right? So are both archers shooting a hinge release?
Tanya shoots a button.
Okay.
And Savannah, I'm pretty sure, is shooting
Savannah
a hinge.
shoots a hinge. But in those scenarios, you're kind of just pulling on a hinge. And the same, I'm sure, with Tanya, if she's shooting that same way.
Yes.
A
lot of people don't understand that on a compound with different style releases, you can shoot a correct back tension style shot with any kind of release. The idea is, obviously, if Savannah's shooting a hinge, she just has to pull. Tanya first has to wrap her finger, set her thumb, and then you'll notice if you watch her shooting, her thumb never moves after that, and then she goes to the same type shot that Savannah would be shooting and just pulling and executing. So I do know, because I've felt Tanya's release, she shoots a pretty heavy trigger. So you'll notice she wraps really heavy on the trigger to get set in, and then she, transfers into pulling through that shot. So both.
So it's definitely more of a surprise when it goes off. Like you learn to know when it's gonna happen. Like the shot is gonna go off.
There you go.
But you do want to be surprised a little bit. That way you're not influencing it.
Yeah.
Influencing the shot, whereas recurve, it's more what you would call command style shooting.
Yes.
Almost like you are waiting on that clicker to go off, but you are still actively moving and like, okay, I want my shot to go off
now. Yes, that makes sense. So both girls open with a 10. Tanya really solid X. There we go. Savannah answered. Coming into this match, I would have said Tanya has a slight advantage. She's been in many finals venues over the years. She just won the SoCal Showdown. She's no stranger to competing on the world stage, where Savannah just now has made our United States archery team as far as the World Cup portion of that team. So she's actually on our World Cup team for this next 2021 season. And I think she's really coming out with a strong showing to show us what she's made of. So Tanya there with a 10.98. And Savannah, did she have a 30? She did. So just like that, even after the craziness that happened the last end, Savannah just gained those points back and now has a 1-point lead over Tanya.
And it's just your game, right? Like this is archery where you have that crazy ability. And I think just guessing, but what happened to Tanya is she was probably aiming off for wind on that last arrow, and maybe the wind stopped or she hit a pocket of air that just wasn't pushing arrows.
Yeah, one thing I will say, because obviously I shot out here this weekend, is that the wind is choppy enough that it does make it very difficult. As we said, these women are not just deciding when to shoot. They're just pulling and waiting for it to happen. And so with that, if you're pushing into the wind and the wind lulls a little bit, it's very easy. And this is a right to left wind for those of you guys that can't see that on the camera. If you're pushing hard into the wind and it stops, it's very easy for your bow to drift out to the right. And on compound, when you're shooting a back tension style shot, typically when your bow has a big movement, that's when it's going to fire because it's applying more pressure to the shot. It's building tension through the string. That's when it's going to break. So for us, oftentimes if you have a big bob or you blow in the wind, your bow very often breaks at those times, and that's basically something both of these women are trying to avoid out there. So compound is guaranteed 5 full ends. They're going to shoot 15 arrows no matter what. They've shot 3 ends so far, so this is their 4th end of 5. And we've got a good wind gust coming through right now. You can see the flags behind Tanya.
Same spot 8.
Yeah, and you can see that her arrow is actually sideways in the target. It's drifting, but for it to hit there, her pin is obviously breaking right of center.
One thing
Good 10 from Savannah.
I like to do as a recurve archer is to take my arrow almost, or create an imaginary line across the X, a lateral line and a vertical line, just to see where I'm grouping. And if I'm looking at Tanya's target, it looks like a lot of her arrows are low.
Yeah. And one thing you will notice always as a compound archer, technically when your arrows are drifting pretty badly in the wind, oftentimes they will go low. So it's difficult because you should click your sight because they're low, but at the same time, if the wind stops, you will then tend to be high. Though I will say it's pretty safe to say the wind is not going to stop out here anytime soon. So Tanja with a 10.88 there. She finished strong on that third arrow. And Savannah with a 10.10.9. So a really strong end for her with those conditions. And she basically just gained more points there. So we're looking at 111 to 107 right now.
4 points is a pretty big gap. You don't want to bet on anybody.
Yes.
You don't want to bet against anybody, but 4 points is
in compound,
genuinely
that is a
big
lot.
Gap in compound.
But I will say in windy conditions with compound, anything can happen. We saw Savannah with that one arrow, that happened earlier. Anything can happen. I think Savannah's goal here is going to be get up there, get your shots off. She knows basically if she can put all 3 arrows in the 9 ring, just in the yellow, even if Tanja shoots a 30, she cannot catch her. So for myself in a situation like this, I'm not going to try super, super hard to pound the 10. I'm going to get up there, make really strong shots, get them off, make them count, because it is easier when you're really gunning down and bearing down really hard to get caught in a wind gust, and that could cost her the match.
That's definitely an experience piece too, because as a younger athlete, you are more likely to be like, oh, I want this. I'm really close to winning. I really want
these 10s. But at this point, she doesn't need 10s. She needs gold.
Well, and I hate to be that person to jinx things, but we haven't seen a shoot-off yet.
We have not. There's a good start from Tanja. So
just throwing it out there.
Tanya's experienced. Tanja knows that if she doesn't come out and throw some 10s down, she has no hope in this end.
There's a 10.
Savannah answers. So Tanja going out here, her mindset is, I know I have to hit the middle. I have no choice. And she's doing just that. Yep. She's doing everything she can to put the pressure on Savannah, and so far, Savannah's handling it very well. Good, strong, quick shot there. It's a 9.
Nine just out.
Still a good shot from Tanja and a good, strong last end there. She did what she needed to do. Savannah did it. Impressive. So Savannah Vanderwier is going to be our 2020 Easton Foundations Gator Cup champion.
Yeah.
What an interesting match. I feel like that was so up and down, back and forth. That definitely had me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, the scores that we saw today are definitely indicative of a challenging field. Whenever I look over at the compound scores, I usually expect about a 145 score match for the winner for women, at least.
I'd say that's a solid number there.
And if it's above, it's like, yeah, you're having a good day. But if everybody's a little bit below that, I'm like, okay, maybe it was a little bit more challenging.
Yes. So, for example, yesterday, there were matches on the men's field where, the average score would be in the 130s.
Yep.
And that's not something they would ever expect to see from the compound men. So just to give you guys an idea of how difficult the conditions are out here. So it is official. Savannah is our champion. I'm sure she's just ecstatic right now. I think this is going to give her some solid confidence heading into next year's World Cup season. And congratulations to Tanja on second. She truly shot amazing all weekend. She qualified. She was our number 1 qualifier. She shot some incredible scores yesterday in the wind. I was just mind blown that she was able to do that. So I'm sure she's a little bummed she's heading home with second. But, man, what a few good weeks. She just got married, heading home with a silver medal, and Savannah gets to walk away with a gold medal.
Hey, in this type of weather and these conditions, and the season being offset of what we normally shoot. Like podium is a good day, you
Yes.
know?
100%.